This is Yarin Cohen from Prog-Nation, and today we get to talk to an amazing guitarist, Richard Henshall of HAKEN, who's here to talk about their latest studio effort, Vector. So, Richard, how's it going?
Very good, very good. It's been a very good week over here. It's nice and hot, and it's approaching autumn, which is my favourite season. So it's all good.
Awesome. Okay, so if you don't mind, we'll just go right in. Let's talk about your latest work. When you guys revealed the artwork and concept of the new album, it was also revealed that your fifth studio record sees the band going in a heavier direction with the music. Was it a conscious decision to write a dark, heavy album, or something that unfolded naturally?
Yeah, I'd definitely say it was a natural process that took place. Whenever we write music, or whenever each of us write music, I guess we try and keep it as organic and free-flowing as possible. And we adopted the same approach with this album. So Charlie lives just down the road from me, so he's about 10 minutes away, and Ray lives just up at the top of London, so it's not too far. And on a few occasions we would meet up and we would jam through some ideas in a more kind of band-like setting. And during these sessions, a lot of these initial ideas came about, and I guess that's why it took on a heavier direction, because when you're playing stuff live, naturally that's what comes to the fingers. But yeah, it wasn't really a conscious effort, to be honest. It was just a natural occurrence.
Okay, great. Well, the concept of the new album sets the scene with the first single you guys released, The Good Doctor. It seems really interesting and pretty sinister at times. What inspired the concept?
It's definitely a big tip of the hat to a lot of the kind of psychoanalysis that took place in the 50s and the 60s. And it's essentially about a patient who's undergoing some electric shock therapy from a sinister doctor. And during this process, he unearths a lot of kind of morbid, dark memories and thoughts from his past. And throughout the album, he's trying to overcome these issues, essentially. And it's seen through the patient's eyes. But throughout the album, there's also a lot of references to psychotherapy and psychology, and a lot of the experiments that took place in the 50s and the 60s, which are extremely fascinating. But also, people might spot a few clues and Easter eggs from our earlier work. So it's almost like a continuation of some of those ideas.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay, can you shed some light on what makes this album the logical step from Affinity, as you guys said in your website?
Yeah, it's a tricky one to say, really. I guess every album that you write is the next step in your career, so naturally it is a logical step. But I guess the closest link to Affinity would be the way we wrote the album. With Affinity, we collaborated fully on that one. That was the first time we all got together and we wrote the album as a band, which was an exciting process, and I really felt that it pushed the sound in a new direction, which was very exciting. And with this album, Vector, we basically carried on that same idea and that same approach to the writing process. And I feel that with this one, we're definitely more efficient, I feel, because with Affinity, it took a while. And it was the first time we've been working like that, so we were finding each other's, just finding our feet, essentially, finding out how each other worked, and it was all about learning how to compromise with each other. Whereas this one, we basically set ourselves a shorter amount of time, and we were all working together. I feel that we've really come up with something that is a fair reflection of all of our interests and styles, and all of our ideas are portrayed quite effectively on the album.
Okay, great. Do you have any set of rules? You talked about being more efficient and stuff like that. Do you have any set of rules, like when you disagree on something creatively, how do you decide which direction to go?
It's very tricky because it's everyone's passionate about their ideas, and when you're being creative, it's not a good recipe sometimes, because people could be, quite, I don't know, I wouldn't say overly passionate about certain ideas, but I think the key is to know how to respect everyone's opinions and compromise. And that's essentially what we did. And we didn't really set any rules with this one, but I think that the reason it was so efficient is that we were all working together, and we all kind of blocked off this time and just focus solely on writing the album. So because we were all pushing it like full throttle together as a band, we were able to do it in about 4 months or so, which is definitely far shorter than any other album we've ever written. But there's definitely a piece of each of us on the album. It's probably our most unified effort to date, I reckon.
Great. Well, your new single, The Good Doctor, showcases you guys going to many new directions, as you said, musically and lyrically. But what's interesting to me is, from the lyrics standpoint, it seems this track really tells a clear story through the lyrics. As your bandmate Charlie said, and I quote, "It's a bit more theatrical and about as rock opera as HAKEN has ever got." What albums are the main influences for this album?
I guess there's so many amazing albums out there that follow a kind of larger than life concept idea. One album would be Tommy by The Who. They're a great band, and they've really kind of nailed that concept idea where they have it's almost like a dramatic, cinematic feel to that album. Another huge album from our past, and one that's really inspired me, would be Scenes from Memory. That's had a massive impact on me as a musician and a composer, but I wouldn't say that it directly influenced the album. But I think musically, aside from the concept, guys like Tigran Hamasyan, he's an Armenian jazz pianist who really, he's got such a unique sound. He fuses these Armenian folk melodies with crazy Meshuggah-like polyrhythmic stuff, and it's just like nothing you've ever heard. So personally, I've been trying to channel some of that piano playing into my guitar playing, which hopefully came out with some interesting results. Also, bands like Carnival are a great band, and try to get a few of their rhythmical ideas in there, whilst obviously there's a big strong metal influence in there. So bands like, when I was growing up, Fear Factory was a big band for me, the Obsolete album, and that influence can definitely be heard on the song Kneel by Mouth. The first couple of minutes of that one, it's just it's almost like a homage to that whole sound, that industrial kind of hard-hitting metal sound. Meshuggah, they're another band as well. So there's across the album, there's quite a vast range of things going on, and within the band we have a broad range of influences as well. So that I still, even though it's essentially a heavier album, there's still a very eclectic range of things going on.
Okay, well, great. I mean, it definitely sounds amazing. Well, looking at the track listing and listening to the album, it seems this album features more concise songs and a total running time than previous releases, meaning quality over quantity, I guess. How do you decide when an album is really done when you write it?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, if you look at our previous albums, we've got Aquarius and Visions, and they were both around the 75-minute mark. I guess, and they felt right at that length because some of the themes felt like they needed to develop in a certain way, and it was right for that time. And then you look at The Mountain and Affinity, they're both around about 60 minutes. And the key thing is that we didn't set out to write an album at a certain length with any of the albums in the past. It's just a natural result of just keeping working on ideas until you feel that they're at their finished form. And the same thing happened with Vector, really, because we just kept on working at it and just chiseling away at these ideas and cutting off all of those excess unnecessary ideas that aren't really essential to make a song what it is. And after that whole process, we were left with a whole bunch of more concise songs, which I feel are a bit more digestible and accessible than our previous efforts. But I guess it's, they've got their different qualities. But yeah, it's hard to say when really. You could just go on forever. I mean, I personally, when I've been writing songs in the past, sometimes I've spent over a year just working on one idea, and you never feel that it's ready. But with Vector, we set ourselves a deadline, and we said, by the end of this period, we've got 4 or 5 months, we want to get it ready and it needs to be done, but just get it recorded. And I think working to a deadline and having something to focus on really helped. And like I said before, we were all pushing it a certain way, and because there's 6 of us all each deciding when a song is finished, I think that helped as well. And when you're on your own writing stuff, sometimes you can just keep going over everything and you can never really finally be content with an idea. But when there's 6 of you working together, I find it is a lot easier in that respect.
Well, great. And what was it like working with Nolly in the studio? I'm guessing bringing someone new to the mixing process can be very different.
Yeah, he's such a great guy, really nice and humble and down to earth. And during the early stages of the writing, it was very apparent that it was going to go down a heavier direction, and it did end up being like that. So we were talking about guys who could potentially mix it, and Nolly's name just kept on popping up. And luckily, he lives fairly close to us. He's only 2 hours away from London, so it's only a 2-hour drive. So that really helped. So when we actually got round to recording the drums, he basically oversaw the first day of the drum recording, and he, as far as I remember, he brought his own heads and tuned them in a particular way which really worked with the tuning of each song, and that really brought out the drum sound and essentially made the drums like huge. I've never heard the drum sounding as big as that on our records before, so that was cool. And then also another thing that he really like nailed was the guitar tones. So what we did was we drove down to his studio in Bath and reamped all of our dry signals for our heavy tones through a whole bunch of different amps and heads that he has in his studio, which was a massively fun process. Because in the past we've always sent off the files to other countries and just let them kind of do their thing. But this time around we were able to oversee it and basically just sit there and chat to Nolly and bounce ideas off each other and just get a real insight of what it is like to be in the seat of a mixer. So that was cool. So the whole thing was really fun, and I'm pretty sure we'll be working with him in the future.
Awesome. Well, the new album really does sound amazing. The drum tone and the guitars are just unbelievable. Okay, so let's talk about your upcoming tour. Your first tour supporting the new album is starting November, right after the release of the new album, and it features fellow musicians Leprous and Bent Knee. Leprous and HAKEN are really 2 bands that I think are redefining the whole prog genre. But actually you two are pretty different in style, and still you share a pretty big fan base. Why do you think that is?
Who knows? I know for Leprous, I mean, we toured with them in 2013, I think it was, or 14, which was a while ago, and we only toured the UK. And we've been to many festivals with them in the past, and they're just the most incredible live band you'll ever see. And the music's very complex, very kind of rich and dark, and somehow they just nail it every night, and it's just perfectly performed, lots of energy and note perfect as well. So I guess that's a massive appeal for them, and that's probably what draws people into their sound. And they've definitely got a unique sound going on, which people obviously latch onto and can relate to, I guess. But for us, who knows? We've got an eclectic sound. I guess there's something for everyone really in our music, and maybe people get turned off by the fact that we're so eclectic and don't like certain sections, but somehow people are still coming to see us, and we're generating more and more fans of each album, which is cool. I mean, it's cool to be, in part of this whole scene with bands like Leprous and many other bands. It's a great thing to be part of.
Yeah. Great. Well, I always admire the way you guys write and create music in HAKEN. Usually the structure of your songs are very different from basic standards. I mean, how do you guys structure the songs? Do you plan ahead, or do you know how each song is going to play out?
Yeah, we definitely, I personally never really structure it too much in my head, as I just will come up with an idea and then allow it to just grow naturally and see where it goes. And then sometimes when you're writing a song and you just know that it's going to turn out to be a long song, you might have a really cool theme or a cool progression that you feel needs to be developed and extended. And in that case, you can kind of see the bigger picture sometimes. You can start to map it out in your mind, or a blueprint of how you think it's going to be mapped out. But I guess the important thing is for us not to be too rigid and be too rule based, because it's important for it to sound free and honest as well. But one thing we do use in terms of the composition is a program called Logic, which really helps us articulate the ideas that are in our head, or the ideas that we're playing on our instrument, and that allows us to program drums, program instruments, and record stuff as well. And so it's a really cool way of just kind of mapping out all of your ideas, and over time you just build this structure and then kind of present it to the rest of the band.
Yeah, well, great. You talked about earlier about that amazing Armenian artist, and I was just wondering, what is, in your opinion, the importance for a musician to have an open mind about other styles of music, and how hard is it to do that, especially in hard rock and heavy metal world?
Yeah, I think every musician has their own interests and their own desires and ambitions. So I think it's not necessarily important for everyone to be open-minded. I feel that you should essentially just listen to what you enjoy, and you shouldn't really force it. So don't listen to something or play something because you feel that it's the right, that's what other people want you to do. I think personally, I just like to be open. I just love all styles of music because there's so much to get from all of these different ideas and different styles and genres out there. So I guess, and for me, because of the music we play and we write, listening to a broad range of music really inspires us to write more eclectic music. So I'll listen to stuff from kind of Bon Iver and Volcano Choir to Meshuggah, and then kind of more jazzy stuff like Mark Juliana and Tigran Hamasyan. So when you kind of fuse all of those ideas together, you've got more fuel in your engine, I guess, to write more interesting ideas yourself.
Great. So let's talk about the debut album from Nova Collective. Your debut album was a very strong release. Do you think we'll ever get to see the band going on tour?
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, it's been just over a year now since we've released that. And that whole project is so much fun. I found it so exciting working with Dan and Pete Jones and Matt Lynch. Yeah, they're just great guys, and we're all on the same page, and we have this similar idea of what we want to create. And just writing with them was just such a liberating experience, and that we just had no boundaries really. We just kind of went for it, and what came out. And we've been trying to get it on the road for a while now, but it's quite tricky. Obviously, I have HAKEN, and we've got quite a demanding touring schedule, and Dan is in between the buried and me, and his schedule is arguably even more intense than HAKEN's because he's constantly playing in the US and all around the world. So one solution would be to either tour with one of our bands. That might be an idea to do one day, but we just haven't been able to make that a reality as of yet. But we are actually working on a second album.
Awesome.
So we've been busy working on some ideas, and we've got, I think, over 50% of it already written, and I feel like we've pushed all of our ideas into new directions and tried to take it even further. So hopefully if we get that out next year, maybe we could do a tour or support a bigger band. That'd be really cool.
Amazing. Actually, I think I read somewhere that you actually wrote the first album in 2015.
Yeah, well, I think because I saw a video from Dan in 2014 online, and he was talking about his favourite music at that time, and he had a copy of The Mountain, and so I sent him a message saying, "Oh man, thank you so much for spreading the word and promoting the band." And he was like, "Yeah, man, I really dig your music," and I was like, "Yeah, I love you guys. Really appreciate what you guys are doing." And then we just got chatting over email, and we just started to share ideas with each other. And that was like at the end of, it must have been around about the end of 2015 or so. And then we wrote the album in about a year, and then we mixed it with Rich Mauser, who does a lot of he does Neil Morse stuff. He does a whole bunch of bands in the US. He's a great guy, and he mixed it for us. But then we just sat on it for about almost a year because HAKEN had a release, and then between the Buried and Me had a release. So we didn't really want to tread on anyone's toes. So we just waited until they were done, and then we released it last year. So yeah, we kind of sat on it for quite a while, but it's quite an exciting process just to sit on that music that we'd had and we created together for a year. It was quite hard because I just wanted to get it out there, but I think it went down pretty well in the end.
Awesome. And you're a part of a new project called Rain Mask, featuring Sam Brooks on vocals and Peter Jones on keyboards and John Vince on drums. This project seems to be taking music to a whole new direction from the styles of HAKEN and Nova Collective. How do you define the style of the album, and what are your influences for Rain Mask?
Oh, it's so awesome that you've heard it. I mean, it's we've put a couple of tracks out already, and we haven't pushed it enough yet. But we've got the material for an album, but we're all just so busy. But we need to dedicate some time and actually get it finished. It's hard to define the style, really. I guess for me, I love guys like Bombay Bicycle Club and Everything, who are some bands from the UK, but they're more kind of indie rock driven. But they also have some more modern electronic influences as well. So I'd say it's a kind of a bit of those guys, but also mixed with some influences of Muse and Pendulum as well. There's a bit of Pendulum in there as well. So there's a definite kind of electro rock vibe. That's how I'd essentially define it, I guess. But it's really cool playing with those guys. We're all great friends, and we used to work together in a music shop, and that's how we wrote all of the music on the album. So it's we've just been sitting on it for about 5 years now.
Really? Wow.
It's been a while, so maybe one day we'll get it out there. But we've released 2 tracks, and we've got enough to release the whole album.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you rewrite the material now after 5 years, or do you just record it the way it is?
I think what we'll do, we'll keep the structures and keep the ideas as they are, and then when it comes to recording, with anything, it always takes on another dimension. So other layers are added, then you might change a guitar part here or change a vocal line here, and then the finished product from the song that was originally written is always fairly different. So I'm sure naturally it will just take on a different sound through the process of recording. But yeah, we need to get it out there. And I feel that it's got quite a modern, fresh sound. And I think even though it's not essentially like HAKEN or Nova Collective, I still think the fans of those bands are quite open-minded, and they'll probably appreciate what we're doing.
Definitely think so too. And last but not least, do you have anything to say to your World Prog-Nation fans?
Well, thank you for reading or listening to this interview, and thanks in advance for listening to Vector as well. I hope you guys enjoy it, and hopefully see you guys at a gig one day.
Awesome. Well, Richard, thank you very, very, very much for all the time you took to answer these questions, and I wish you great luck and have fun on tour.